All right, so your worksheet, guys, this is just sort of a worksheet just to kind of get you guys comfortable with how to use the colored pencils. For those of you who did the drawing and painting oil pastel project with the veggies and fruit still life, it's basically the same techniques as oil pastels, it's just a different medium. So I'm going to be kind of repeating the same stuff that I do when I teach oil pastels. Now, some of you guys had Mr. Gronis for class, so he might have kind of taught a little bit differently, but that's fine and that's great. So you guys can kind of take what you want from both of us and kind of make whatever technique you need to make it work, okay? So if you guys look at your worksheet, so this is the, again, the last page in your packet. If you guys look up at the top, it says tips and advice. As a general rule, the lightest color is always applied first. However, it is sometimes necessary to apply additional alternating layers of the light color. And the reason why I do that a lot of times is that I'm trying to blend the colors together. So a lot of times I use whatever color I started off with, or maybe one of the lighter colors in the beginning stages of that layering process. I'll go back over with that lighter color and use that to kind of blend everything together. So that's just a little tip. I don't always do that. Obviously, I wouldn't do that if I'm trying to darken up something. I'd probably be going over it with a darker color. Apply colored pencil in thin, even layers with skill and patience. Once you have finished the surface should be completely burnished with no paper showing through. So this is, again, a term we used during the oil pastel project, is that you will be burnishing your surfaces. That's how you'll know you're finished, so that all the paper should be covered up when you're done. Now, obviously, we're using just regular copy paper here. It's going to be a lot different for you guys when you go on the illustration board because that paper's got tooth to it. So you'll be able to actually put more layers on that than you will on this paper. All right, so the third thing says, don't forget that once several layers of colored pencil are applied to an area, it is very difficult to alter the color or value. So here's the thing, if you're not sure about what you're doing, and it may not necessarily apply on this worksheet because this is a worksheet, but when you guys are working on your colored pencil drawing, is that if you're really unsure about what you should be doing and what colors you should be using, the last thing you need to be doing then is adding pressure to your colored pencil, because remember, the more media you have layered up and the more pressure you use, the less you get to put on later, okay? So a lot of times in those areas, I just tend to work very light until I'm ready to commit to what I'm doing. All right, so we have a few different things here. I'm going to take you through just a couple different things, and then I'll demo how to do this gradated scale, which is a really fun thing to practice. So, all right, so the first thing I'm going to do is an analogous undertone. So you guys can kind of work alongside me while I'm doing this, and then we'll kind of keep moving on, all right? So I'm going to, now it says yellow under green, so you can choose any yellow that you have in your sets, okay? It doesn't matter which yellow you use, just pick any yellow. So everybody's worksheet will look slightly different because you could be using different colors. And then again, you pick any kind of green you want. So I am going to be using, oh boy, it's kind of canary yellow, which is number 916. And then also my green is going to be the grass green, which is number 909. So, number 909. So at any time, if you guys are interested in just buying your own colored pencils, I do recommend this brand a lot. I use these myself, but Prismacolor's got a great line of products. But the numbers, you know, and you guys noticed I said the name of the color and then the number. Whenever you're ordering and want to order a specific color, you know, you can order by number. You don't have to worry about the name. So, all right. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to first start. I'm going to see if maybe turn the light on. Ooh, maybe. Okay. So what I'm going to do is just put a thin layer of colored pencil down in this box first. So remember, whenever you start, you want to start with a thin layer. You got to think about, kind of pretend like if this was your project, you wouldn't be starting real heavy with your colored pencils. And I'm looking for something that's very even, so I don't want this to look patchy. So I'm very conscious about making sure that it's kind of evenly applied. And I'm just going to go back through with this yellow and kind of fill in any patches I might see. Now, I kind of go back and forth between how I apply my colored pencils. Sometimes I do these like little circles like this, which I think are a really nice way of kind of making the color even. And I don't know, it's easy to control. Whereas sometimes when I do lines, it gets a little too linear looking. So I find that I can just do a lot more even tone if I do these little circles. So then what I'm going to do is after I'm finished with the yellow, I'm going to take my green. I'm using the grass green again. And I'm just going to start by kind of doing, again, a thin layer of the grass green. And so what you should see, as soon as you start to layer these colors on top of each other, they should kind of blend together, just like they do if you were using oil pastels. And again, I'm kind of doing these little circles or ovals as far as how I'm actually applying the colored pencil to the worksheet. Now, also too, this paper, because it's so smooth, you're not going to get a whole lot of grab to it, so it makes it harder to add a lot of layers when you're on flat, like kind of real smooth paper like this. So if you want to do colored pencils on your own, definitely make sure you got paper that's got a little bit of a grab to it, tooth, so you have room to play around with it. So I'm just going to go through again the same thing, just make sure it's all nice and even. And then I'm going to go back over with my yellow, and I always say this is the magic. Magic happens on the third layer, so you should start to see all this kind of blend in a lot more. So again, doing the little circles or lines. And then I'm just going to finish off then with a layer of green. And this time, so on my fourth layer, I'm going to put quite a lot of pressure on this. Now, that doesn't mean like when you guys go to do your colored pencil on your illustration board, that fourth layer you start putting a lot of pressure down. That's probably not going to happen for a while on those, just because you're trying to depict shadows and reflective color, so that takes time to develop and think about. This you really don't have to think about too much. So now I'm really putting down some pressure, still wanting to make sure that this stuff looks all nice and even. And I'm going to go back over it actually in several different directions, just making sure I kind of cover all the surface that way. You know you're finished when all the paper has been completely covered, everything looks nice and even. And you can tell that you're not making any changes to the surface anymore. You can just tell that the surface is filled up and it's done. So there you go. 4 layers. So the worst thing that you could possibly do with colored pencils is kind of pretend like you are 7 years old again and you're coloring in a coloring book. That's not what you're doing. You're going to be layering colors up, so, even if something is green, you're not just putting green down. You're using yellows and blues and all that kind of stuff. All right, so there's that. That's basically how you're going to approach all of these that are here on the Analogous Undertone list. how you're going to do the complementary colors. And then, of course, you have the temperature undertones. You'll do those the same way, and then also to down here at the bottom, these 3 boxes. So now what I want to do is I want to do this one where it says create 4 different values of one color. Use white to lighten and blue indigo to darken. So first thing you're going to do, make sure you've got a white colored pencil, and then make sure you also have the blue indigo, which the blue indigo is number 901. Okay, this is a must-have in every colored pencil artist collection. You have to have blue indigo, because this is what you're going to use to primarily darken everything. You're not going to always go for black. Now, that's part of a lot of people's mistake when they first start working in art or with color, is that they think, okay, if I need to darken something, my first color I need to go for is black. Well, if you mix black in with a lot of your colors, you're going to gray them out, and you're going to muddy them up. Blue, this indigo blue, is going to make it so that your colors are richer, deeper, and just better looking. So it's not going to dirty them up. It's just going to darken them and even make them look better. Okay, so indigo blue is your end-all for contrast. So then just pick any color you want to. Totally up to you guys as to what you want to pick. Trying to think, what have I done on some of the other ones? I did blue or green. Oh, I just did green. I'm going to, well, let's see here. I'm going to do red. I'll do red. So I'm going to do red. All right, so you pick whatever color you guys want to. Totally up to you. Okay? Totally up to you. So I'm going to move this. So, okay. So it doesn't matter exactly where you started. We're just going to start somewhere, and you want it just to go from lightest to darkest. So I'm going to treat this very top wedge as my lightest one. To start it off, I'm going to start off with a thin layer of white. Okay. So by starting off with a thin layer of white, whatever color I put on top of there will automatically start a bit lighter. So this is a good thing to kind of remember, is that anytime you want to have sort of a lighter, brighter, or paler color, start with a layer of white underneath it. Now you guys definitely need to consider that as an option, because we all have watercolor on our boards first. So if you have an area that needs to be light and you have like a blue painted behind there, you need to give it a brighter base to start off with. Now you do need to be careful a bit with this white, because it will pastel your colors out. So if you're trying to brighten up a color, white may not always be the answer. White will lighten, but it won't always brighten. Okay. So the next thing I'm going to do, let's see here, do that, yeah. So now I'm going to choose, since my color is red, I'm going to do red, just a layer of my color that I chose in the second wedge. Actually, I'm going to probably do this in all the wedges. So I'm going to take this red all the way through the other 3. Thin layer again. Making sure everything kind of looks nice and smooth and even. Then I'm going to do it in this wedge too. So this way all of these have a base of red. Now at any point, if you guys need to sharpen your pencils, use the electric pencil sharpeners in the room. I've got 2 of them over there on the counter, and then I have 1 over there in the spray booth. Don't use the manual pencil sharpeners. The wax and the colored pencils tend to jam them. There we go. It's nice to know they work. They get burnt out a lot. All right, so, okay. So I've got a thin layer of red in each one of those 3. So, and then again, my first one has white in it. So now what I'm going to do, I'm just going to go ahead and put a second layer of this red on top of the second one. this is probably going to be the one that's just going to be the flat color. So I'm still going to give myself some room to make changes to that in case I need to. So I'm just going to leave it like that. Let's see here. Probably go ahead and put a thin layer of red on top of this white. Go in and put another layer of red on this one here, on the wedge on the bottom. And then I'm going to take that indigo blue and I'm going to put a thin layer of the indigo blue on this bottom wedge to start darkening it up. So you should see right away that it's starting to darken. Okay. Then I'm going to take that indigo blue. I'm going to put probably a couple layers of the indigo blue on this last one. So this is the one that I want to be the darkest. So I want to have more of the indigo blue in this one. Maybe a bit heavier on that. And then I'll go back over that darkest one with a layer of red to bring back the red. I'm going to go ahead and keep working on this darkest one and go ahead and add another layer of the indigo blue then back on top. So I want this to be fairly dark. So this one's going to have a lot more of that indigo blue. So yeah, so you can see how dark that got. Again, keep in mind, guys, I didn't use any black at all. I don't need it. So I'm going to go back to my lighter ones. I'm going to go back to my lightest one, and I'm going to go over with a layer of white to lighten this up. So again, I always say it's that third layer that you start to see everything kind of blend together. So you can see what's happening, how that white is just blending all these colors together. There's my lightest one. Go back over this one with just plain old red. And then I'm going to go back over this one with red. So there you go. You can see how you can lighten and darken a color. Basically just using 3 colored pencils. Now I've got my white, my indigo blue, and my red. There's that. Or I could still go over my red. I still see some paper showing through. So you want to make sure, guys, to make it, fully finished, you want to make sure that you don't see any of that paper showing through. So by the time you get to those last few layers, you're putting a lot of pressure down. All right. So let's talk about the gradated technique. So on this, let me move this so I can get this. Okay, so I'm actually going to turn my worksheet so it's on its side. I feel like I work a lot better when it's flipped like that. And so what you want to do, if you guys look at the directions, it says gradate 2 colors together. Pick 2 primary colors. So again, pick 2 primary colors, any version that you want, okay? I'm going to go ahead, because I've got examples of blue and red and yellow and green. I'm going to do yellow and red. So go ahead and pick your colors. Okay, so I'm going to do yellow and red. So, from what you guys remember back in Fine Art 1, when you mix yellow and red together, what color should you get in the middle? Orange, okay? So, doesn't matter which end or what color you put on which end. So I'm going to just start with yellow. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to start with a thin layer yellow on my left. Start with any color you want. Just make sure it's a primary color. And I'm going to take this all the way through and past the middle, because the middle is where I want the orange to start or to kind of get created. So in order for that to happen, I need to go take this yellow past the middle. Now as I get closer to the right side, I'm kind of lifting off some of the pressure off my pencil, so I have a less amount of the yellow down here. And then I'm going to actually go back over here to my far left and go ahead and do another layer of the yellow. So the more left it goes, it should be more yellow. Alright, just building up the yellow down here over on the left side. Now I'm not building it up to the point where the left is completely burnished, so I just want to build it up so I can see it a little bit better. And I still got a thin layer of it here in the middle. So now I'm ready to start the red. So I'm actually going to turn mine over. I don't know. For me, I work better left to right. I can't really work right to left. I don't know if it's because I'm right-handed, but I'm flipping it over. And then I'm going to do basically the same thing with the red over here on the other side now. Now the red being a darker color for me, it goes on a lot quicker, a lot easier. So you got to be very careful with some of these darker colors is that it doesn't take much to get them down. So I'm just going to do thin layer. Again, I'm going to take it past the middle because I want that orange to pop in the middle. Now I'm not going to see it right away. I won't see it until I get more layers down. And then again, as I move over to the right again, I'm kind of lifting up on my pressure so that it kind of fades out. And then I'm going to go back to the beginning of the red and then just build it up. So while I'm doing this, I am varying the amount of pressure that I'm putting on the colored pencil. So I'm going back and forth between being a little bit heavier, a little bit lighter, depending on what I need. So in the end, when you're finished with this, you're just going to keep building this up until it gets completely burnished again. You should see that secondary color popping up into the middle. One thing you're going to find out very quickly is that colored pencils do take time because of the way that you have to layer and think about each layer that you're putting down. So I keep going back over here to the far left, adding more pressure every time to build up this red over here, and then I'll do the same thing when I go back and flip this and kind of work on the yellow. And this is something that's really easy for you to practice in your sketchbook. All you need is 2 colors. You can do this with any media, but I think this is something that, you know, even if you don't know, if you have your sketchbook and you're like, I don't know what to draw, just practice your techniques. Practice shading, practice mixing colors, practice drawing from perspective. You don't have to be creating the next Mona Lisa in your sketchbook to be able to work in it. Alright, so I'm going to flip it again, go back to my yellow, kind of build up the yellow here on this side so it's starting to look saturated. Now this is when, so now again, going over this stuff, I should start to see my orange pop up. And there we go. Now I'm adding a good bit of pressure at this point just because I'm ready to kind of commit to these colors. I'm still kind of working on blending, so I'm still cautious about going for a full burnish here. So I'm just going to go back and work on my red. Now, your goal here, guys, is not to get that stripy look on here. So be careful. Don't, if you do start to see kind of a striped look, when you go in and kind of work on blending. Okay, so there's my red. I'll show you guys. Here's what my blue to red looks like. Something that you'll notice on this one, it's kind of got a hazy look to it. If you look at, you can see I kind of wipe off that. That's called wax bloom, which we'll get on our projects at one point. Over the course of time, the wax from the colored pencil actually comes up to the surface, and it kind of makes your work look a little bit cloudy. There's a solution to it, and we'll be doing it, but just in case you notice, again, I'm getting wax bloom on this one too. It happens a lot when you've got a lot of layers and you've burnished a lot. So there's my yellow to green, or my yellow to blue, my blue to red, and then my yellow to red. All right, so what you guys want to do now is go work on the other little swatches that you have there. And yeah, just finish on working on all these little swatches. So that's it. I'll put these. So there you go.